Worried about selling in tough times? Well, watch on. As a business accountant, my team and I spend all day long helping business owners on their journey. And today, there's two of us on camera. I'm joined by sales and business development expert, Will Palmer. Hi, Will. Welcome to the YouTube in this case.
Thank you, Dan. Very nice to meet you again.
Yeah.
And great to be here this morning.
Fantastic. Well, the reason I brought you in, and I thought would be great value to the viewers, is I wanted to talk to you about this idea that I very much believe we're in a tough trading position, trading times. You can see in the media, all this issue around cost of living increases. We know in business, I've done lots of videos on the channel around how we've got tax rises, there's wage challenges, inflation, lots of doom and gloom out there. But I'm also a big fan of working with businesses over this time, of the opportunity that this can bring. And we see certain actions in business owners quite often which can be damaging to their business.
Absolutely.
And I'm interested to get your thoughts on what people should be doing. So if we're in a tough time, or we think we're approaching it, what people should be doing with their sales, their business development, and their kind of customer, how they deal with their customers during this time. So I thought you'd be good to get your opinion on.
Well, first of all, it's a great question, because there's a common bomb that people kind of landmine that people step on at times like this, which is to assume that just because time's tough, sales and business development activity should be kicked into the grass. And nothing could be further from the truth. So when I look at a time like this, and you're right, and the irony is that we all blasted through COVID and lockdown, hoping that if we just get to the end of that tunnel, we're on the sunny uplands of growth. And I think for a short period of time there was a golden period. But now we're being slammed by the cost of living crisis, by things happening in the broader community. So when I'm asked about, there's three things that I think about, Dan, that as a business owner, and as at this moment in time, my life is focused on sales and business development. It's an important caveat to put in. I have also been a business owner. So I've run and managed a number of my own companies. I've done everything from run a 6-man consultancy to be managing director of a large PLC, and I've got 4 businesses to disposal as well. So my comments are based both in terms of how to sell, but also the importance of what to think about as that business owner. 3 things I think about, as I say. The first thing, and my first piece of advice, is to look to add value to your existing customer and client base. I know it's an old chestnut, but the lowest hanging fruit in sales is always within our existing customer base. So first thing to focus on, and I remember started talking to people a lot about this during lockdown. You and I may have even had the conversation around about this time, is look to add value to those people you already do business with. And there might be a couple of ways you can do that. First of all, and this is going to sound bonkers and very counterintuitive since we're talking about tough times, but look to see if there's any stuff you can give away.
Yep.
Now, people like you and I who are in a consultancy-based business, in a services-based business, that might be relatively simple. Now, what I'm not saying, for clarity, I'm not saying is go and give the crown jewels away.
Definitely not.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't give away all the intellectual property of your business. But most people who run consultancy or services-based business will know that there's things that they do that customers find really useful that they could perhaps give away, and it doesn't cost them very much to do it at all. So look very closely at your portfolio and products and services and see if there's some things you can give away.
Yeah.
Now that's harder in a product-based business, I get that, but maybe in a product-based business what you can give it away is not necessarily a product, but some knowledge, some thought leadership stuff. So there's a kind of nice segue into what you do on this type of thing, is you give thought leadership and give value back, not only to your customers, but to the wider community as well. But giving stuff away can be done in the format of offering free webinars, free seminars, free something where you're offering to your community, your ecosystem. And the beauty here is that unless you are making an active decision to say, I'm going to scatter this to the wider world, there's sometimes value in making your customer base feel really special.
Definitely.
You know, I value your business, value you being a relationship with me. Why don't I offer something back at this time? Customers have a long memory. Clients remember stuff. And when times get tough, they'll remember that you went the extra mile to do things for them. So that's my first piece of advice. Sounds bonkers, sounds counterintuitive, but if we do it right, we can do it without destroying our business and really building that long-term trust and rapport. Find ways to add value by giving stuff away.
Yep.
I don't know if does that sound mad to your world?
No, not at all. I think it's actually what we've seen a lot of clients do when they're out there, particularly through, say, COVID. I remember I always use this 2008, 2010 type timeline because it's very reminiscent of that time where it was really tough. There was a lot of clients that did this very, very well. And sometimes it can be, you mentioned about products. I mean, that's one of the questions that quite often we get asked is people will say, in a service business, you can do talks, webinars, whatever. But I still think it's possible, like you said, in a product environment, you can still give expertise, talks around what you're doing, how to use the product, all this extra things that your competitors might not be doing that take energy and creativity. And stuff that might be outside of your comfort zone. You might not like being on camera. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of being on camera, if I'm honest. I don't like looking at myself. But it's people. If people find it valuable, then it's good, right?
Hey, Dan, I've got some clients, so outstanding examples of people who, right at the start of lockdown, decided to invest, and these are real hardcore product, like engineering businesses, for whom doing the activity I'm just about to explain would sound off the scale. But I work with some companies who have invested in facilities like this to offer advice exactly along the lines I said there, and it was so phenomenally successful. They've poured extra resource and extra money into that, and because they saw it add value during that early lockdown period, that's just now hard-boiled into the DNA of the business. And they're pumping more and more investment into it to grow, and it's gone from just, hey, listen, add some value, to this is now a primary business focus for them. This drives customers towards them and massively increases that rapport with existing customers. And that, as I say, couldn't be a more hardcore engineering product-based business doing exactly what you and I have just spoken about there.
Yeah, and I think you're right. And if that doesn't work, I suppose you're taking this value idea, what we have seen work quite well with clients over the time, is what they may do is repackage their current offering, whether it's product or service, to add value, tweak the value that's in those offerings, to add those things. So it could be, you include extra reports that can, and oddly, sometimes those things can lead to further sales. They're because you're adding value that people then want to explore more with you. There's no shortage of money in this time. It's a psychological thing a lot of the time.
I love the way you've brought that up. It's like you've segued that into my second pillar, because my second pillar is to look very closely at your market, the people you currently do business with, and show what I call commercial dexterity. So the second pillar is this commercial dexterity to look and figure out what else you can be selling to them. Now, again, in a service or a consultancy based world, that might be relatively simple. The starting point for all of this commercial dexterity would normally be, I'll just go and speak to some customers. Just let me sit down with them and make a phone call. Is it okay if I come in and pick your brains for half an hour, grab a coffee, and just ask them some questions about what's happening in their world.
What's your challenges right now?
Yeah. And here's the thing I learned. If you ask people to tell you about themselves, do you know what they'll do?
It's the number one topic.
It's literally their specialist subject, right? So they'll tell you, they'll be really open. And just listen, use active listening techniques to figure out what's changing in their world. And then show the dexterity to go back and look at your product portfolio and your offerings and say, maybe there's something else that I do today that I can sell to address the needs I've just heard. I know this is almost like 101 of how to run a business, right? Figure out what people need and design something to sell it.
In good times, though, that's not always, it doesn't feel like sometimes it's needed. You can get away with it. I think
that's such a great point. We get lazy, we stick our feet up on the table, business is coming through. The other part that often stops us is with the head trash in our brains that says, yeah, that's okay, but what if they say something that's going to require a big change? Well, coming out with big product lines from a business owner perspective, is a non-trivial event as a whole. I'm not necessarily talking about those big changes. I'm talking about those things around the edge that can be done quickly. Again, if it's a consultancy or a service business, fairly simple. But even in a product-based business, maybe there's a service wrap that you hadn't thought about. Maybe a tweak to one product line to address, because you'll see this in your business all the time as well, Dan. It's when times are tough that our customers' requirements change slightly as well. It's not only our business that changes, everyone around us is changing. So keep your radar up and show that commercial dexterity to make changes. I'm not talking about a massive pivot in your business.
No, we've been there right through COVID. So
we've all, and to
some people,
sound corny, but for anyone that's come through COVID, first of all, congratulations. Secondly, you have probably started to display this kind of commercial dexterity almost by stealth or by accident. My suggestion is, now we're through that, look back at what you did. What changes did I make in the business there? Now how can I proactively go and drive that commercial dexterity into my business? So that's pillar number 2.
Yeah, and it's almost that, I suppose it's that, if you were to draw kind of a graph or a grid, accountant talk about graphs, right? but the idea that you're looking for that sort of low cost, high impact, or
that's a good one.
Type thing around it, because, and I think that's what comes back to creativity a lot of the time, is what can you do? But it does require a lot of thought, maybe a lot of input from, as you say, customers, your team, if you're lucky enough to have a team, thinking about what you can do. I think the biggest challenge people will often say is, I don't have time. I mean, do you hear that in your world?
Of course. So I don't have time, and it's strange, isn't it, that the I don't have time normally comes out higher than I don't have money.
Yes.
And below that is some form of I can't be bothered. I really can't be bothered, and it's too much of an effort. My only pushback, shame on you as the business owner, the people driving the business, if you can't take the time out to find ways to make money and pivot for the business, then why are you in it? But I love that. I love your idea of the grid. Yes, the high impact, high revenue, high return. Just pick the thing that you can do in your business that's not going to drag the rest of the business down, that you can just supplement the revenue. Make sure you're looking after that bottom line at all times.
And as you say, and I suppose a lot of those couple of pillars are talking towards customer attention, which has got to be key, right? Because we all know how much in the sales world it actually costs, if you were to add up how much, and I'm sure if you did it in your own businesses, how much it actually costs to acquire that first customer. And the last thing you want to be doing is losing existing ones and request for new ones.
Hey, listen, you're talking to someone whose mantra has always been literally the hardest thing in business is finding a new customer. I don't care what else you throw at me. I've always thought the hardest thing in business is finding a new customer, which reinforces the fact that our primary job in sales and business development isn't actually, most people then jump to, so therefore my primary job must be to grow my existing customers. There's an even more fundamental thing than that, which is to retain your existing customers. You can't grow them if you don't retain them. So base level, ground zero in a sales and business development strategy is, let me find ways to make sure I retain my existing customer base, which strangely isn't how people, when I walk into people and start talking about sales and business development, they expect me to talk about winning new clients.
How to close.
Hey, listen, you've worked with me. You know I don't allow the word close. Don't like the word close. If we're having to close, we're having to work too hard. By the time we get to the end of a sales process, the deal should just be walking itself over the line, or we should have qualified out. So you picked up no C words in my.
That's a whole other discussion, right?
That's another discussion. That's a rabbit hole we won't go down. But this idea that we have to base level in any sales and business development strategy is, let's retain the customers we've got, because once they start walking out the door, to your point, there's so many statistics around the cost of losing a client compared to the cost of acquiring a client. It's the hardest thing, and it's the most difficult thing in business, is to find new customers.
No, indeed. And I think one of the strategies that you've quite often taught and talk about a lot is this idea of referrals, right? Of course, the having good retained customers and clients that love what you do is obviously going to be key to that type of thing, right?
Yeah. Well, it's, again, you can't ask for referral unless you're offering a good service to someone. And again, you and I have worked, and there's ways of asking for referrals. But again, that's beautiful segue into my third suggestion about what we can do to focus on our sales and business development activity in times when times are tough. Third pillar, and having just spoken about the importance of focusing on existing customers, I'm now going to pivot and talk about what most people would often think about in selling, which is prospecting and lead generation.
Yep.
And a fundamental rule in tough times is never take your eye off prospecting and lead generation. I think you've mentioned to me in the past that you hear people, you come across clients that you work with who are drawn to and attracted by the fact that, oh, I can save some money by stopping doing this sales activity, this prospecting activity.
Yep.
And I think, like me, you're the mindset that wants to grab them and scream, no, don't do that. The worst thing you can possibly do at a time like this is to turn that tap off.
Definitely. I mean, I call it this idea of hedgehogging. I know I've spoken to you about this.
Yes,
where you wrap up into a little cocoon and try and hibernate through the tough times. I think that our experience of working with owners is that this is absolutely the wrong thing to do. And the first thing as accountants people come to us and normally say is, how do I cut my costs? You know, that's the kind of thing that people think accountants give you. It's like, you're asking the wrong question here. Let's deal with the top. The bottom, yes, of course, keeping an eye on your overheads, making sure that they're valuable to your business is really, really key. But I think what we saw, COVID as an example, is what people were doing is just cancelling the direct debits. Any sales. So I mean, we've got a lot of marketing people that are clients of ours, and the amount of business they initially lost in that initial time. But we've seen so many businesses boom through COVID, and they were the ones that carried on. And it was the same going back into other financial tight times. So 100% in agreement with you. For me, sales, marketing are the lifeblood of a business. You can't cut it off. You're going to have natural wastage because your customers, your clients, people buying your product are not immune to the situation we're in, right? So they're going through the same time. There will be those that physically can't afford your service anymore. So how are you going to replace them? You know, if you cancel it all and no one can find you and you're not pushing yourself into the market, you're going to be in these problems. So 100% in agreement with that. I think you must carry on with your prospecting.
It's also important to use this time to analyse really carefully within your business which of the lead generation activities really do offer return on investment. So most businesses that I work with have, whether they consciously do this or not, have a number of streams of lead generation and business development. A great thing to have. You know, couldn't be more pleased to see businesses having multiple plates spinning. That's the good thing. The downside is they don't analyse the return on those. So they've no idea whether it's a LinkedIn activity they do, whether they're doing phone calls, they do email, whether they go networking events, whether they do webinars. They've thrown them all out there, and it's kind of generating some stuff. But they've never taken the time to see which of those, what's the return on those prospecting behaviours. So now's a good time, A, don't stop doing it, but B, use this time to really analyse closely, because I will guarantee that they don't all offer the same return on investment. No.
That's certainly our experience working with owners from the financial viewpoint, right? Is you look at it and same question we'd ask, what's the return on that? You know, whether it be and it can just be your energy, right? In the smaller startup world, you might be a one-person business. What's your return on that networking you do every week, you know, versus some other type of content?
And we spoke a few minutes ago about, people saying, I haven't got the money, I haven't got the time, and I threw in this third one, I can't be bothered. The suggestion I just made there to look closely at the return on those prospecting activities. Nobody falls. The reason I don't do it, business owners tell me, is some format of I can't be bothered. What's the point, Will? So long as they're returning, so long as my sales engine gets new stuff put in the top, I don't really care where it comes from. Again, what a bonkers way of looking at the world. So business owners will analyse really closely the return on every penny they spend elsewhere within the business, but within their sales and business generation world, they're quite happy to just throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks. So never turn off the prospecting radar, particularly now. Focus on what works. And my third suggestion onto this particular pillar is look at one prospecting activity in particular that can return great output at this moment in time, which is referrals. Now again, you and I have worked together in the past, and I've told you I think asking for referrals and introductions is one of the great untapped sources of prospecting. Most people I speak to when I ask them about referrals say, yeah, referrals are great for us. People are always knocking at my door. That's not what I mean about referrals. That's lazy referring. That's bunts. If people knock on your door because they've been told by Bob or Sue or Joe to come speak to you, happy days, never turn that off. But that's a mad way to try and sit and hope your business grows.
Yeah, it's fingers crossed.
That's the fingers crossed school of prospecting. Happy days if it happens. Referrals and introductions from a proper sales process way means you proactively going out and approaching your customers and clients and asking them to refer you to people that they know who might find value from speaking to you. Now, quite a lot of the coaching work I do with business owners about how to pull together prospecting plans is focused on coming up with a constructive, there is a 5-step way of asking for referrals, like any form of prospecting. If you do it right, it does great returns. If you do it rubbish, it's like, you'll probably hear the same as I do, people telling you, cold calling doesn't work. Of course it does if you do it right. Emailing doesn't work. Well, no, it's never going to work if you ain't doing it properly. People telling me, I've tried asking referrals, I'm never getting any, so I won't do it anymore. That's probably because you're not asking for them correctly. So if you've got a process in place, it works right. So asking for referrals now is a simple thing to do, ties in well back to my first one of adding value. And the way that those two are really closely linked is to the understanding what the karma of referral world is, which is those people that get given great referrals by some bizarre karmic coincidence are also those people that offer to give referrals. So, and this is off the scale, counterintuitive, but if you're about to go and have a referral conversation with someone, which incidentally is a standalone conversation in its own right, the starting point shouldn't be, hey, listen, Dan, I don't suppose you know anyone who might find value from speaking to me. The starting point is actually, Dan, listen, we probably both use referrals to grow our business. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the kind of people you like to be referred to? And I'll give some thought to whether I know anyone that meets that profile. Dan, why don't you tell me what that person looks like? So by turning the conversation back into them, it's a much more natural segue into, right, okay, can I tell you the kind of people I like to be referred to on the back of that?
Yeah.
So it's this collaborative, offering stuff back. It ties in very nicely with that first pillar I spoke about, which is add value to your customers and clients and make that extra effort and investment.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I think, as you say, it's one of the great untapped sources. I mean, if you're in a product world, that can be maybe slightly different in terms of there, but you've got something to sell, right? It's a similar idea.
I genuinely don't think I've met a client that I work with or a business for whom perfecting a referral talk track and building referral behaviours into their prospecting and sales engine isn't either A, appropriate, or B, has the ability to offer massive returns for a relatively small amount of investment.
Indeed.
Certainly in terms of cost, doesn't cost anything. A little bit of time and maybe a little bit of investment of skilling yourself up to make sure you ask for them correctly, because that's what really moves the dial. If you're asking for referrals and you're not getting any, my very strong suspicion is you ain't doing it properly.
No, I can see that, and I think it's one of the interesting things you see quite a lot online. You know, gurus saying don't go networking, don't do any of these other things. I think it's that they obviously not experienced it done correctly, because for me and working with the owners we do, I've seen some phenomenally successful businesses built off of purely referrals. Not only, I mean, our own business grew for 10 years without near enough without a website. You know, like it's all based off that kind of thing. So it really does work, but and in tough times, you're right, it's reigniting that cause. But I think it goes back to your initial couple of pillars. It's conversations, right? Speaking to your clients, your customers, and that conversation in itself is a valuable thing to be having.
I couldn't agree more.
More valuable probably than anything you're going to do is the old phone, I think.
Yeah, so I've used the word rapport through here as well. So the fact that we're speaking to our customers. I hope I'm not saying anything. Well, I know I'm not saying anything particularly revolutionary or earth-shattering. People often ask me to come on these kind of talks and think I've got some great magic bullet, or I'm going to come out with some piece of rocket science. None of this is rocket science, right? It's pure blinking logic. And the idea that we go and speak to our customers on a regular basis and clients and ask them about themselves shouldn't be earth-shattering.
No.
This should be part of our natural rhythm of doing business. It's just to the theme of this conversation now, Dan, when times are tough, we need to proactively go and do that and think about it, because it doesn't necessarily involve huge amounts of cost and effort. It's just what we should be doing normally. So the 3 pillars then, in summary: figure out how you can add value to customers. Find something that, on the back of demonstrating some commercial dexterity by asking existing customers, what else you can be doing. How else can I add something to my portfolio for which I can charge money? And number 3, never ever take your eye off the prospecting ball. Keep that radar up for lead generation and prospecting.
Fantastic.
And get referring.
Yeah, no, I'm completely with you on all of these. So if you were talking now to business owners, what's the kind of the one thing you would like them to take away practically? They turn this video off. What's the one thing that they should be going and doing for the most impact right now, do you think?
Yeah, okay, for the most impact, that's a good question. For the most now impact, I would be focusing on the prospecting. Because the other two are something of a longer game. So the first one we're talking about, add value back to your clients, that's unlikely to see like an instant return. You're not going to suddenly see your bottom line being transformed on the back of that. But I think that's a rock solid, long-term, long game, proper investment in customer and client retention and building trust and rapport. The second one I spoke about of trying to find some additional products and services to sell in terms of showing commercial dexterity, that's probably a medium-term play. Because you will probably need, even if you thought of the idea today, even in a consultancy or a service-based world, you're probably going to have to move some things around the business, maybe upskill slightly or do something. The prospecting is something that can drive revenue into the business in a relatively short period of time.
Definitely. And I think one of the, I suppose the bit I would like to add to that from experience of working with the owners is action. I mean, you mentioned it before. Action's key, right? We can talk about it all we like in these videos and everything else. It's whether someone goes away and does it. And it's amazing the time you can squeeze out of a day when you're sitting there making a cup of tea and you could phone one of your customers or clients and just have a conversation with them. Okay, some of those, the natural, when I talk to owners about this, and even in our internal team, the natural thing is, oh yeah, but what if that conversation's half an hour? Well, then it's half an hour. Or you make it clear at the beginning of the call, you've only got X amount of time. You just want to check in. It doesn't have to be, and I'm not suggesting, and I don't think you are, phoning somebody up because it's a separate conversation and saying, I'm really struggling for business, you got anything? It's not that kind of call, right? What you want to know is how's it going, what are the challenges you're experiencing. Great, that could literally be the call, but that's a valuable conversation to have because,
Great point. So I always speak to business owners and sales leaders about focusing on behaviours. So measure yourself and target yourself on behaviour. So don't measure yourself on, hey listen, this month or this week I've got to find 10 new clients, generate 16 new prospects. Those goals are really tough to achieve. And I think it's one of the fundamental mistakes in selling that sales leaders make, which is they focus exclusively on the number. But what they're doing then is they're focusing on what we call a lag generator, a lag indicator, not a lead indicator. The true lead indicators in sales and business development are the behaviors themselves. So you did a great example there. Your example of, today I'll pick the phone up and speak to someone. So measuring behaviours, particularly at this time, but in any time within sales and business development, will be, for example, this week I'm going to pick the phone up to 10 existing customers. I'm going to host 3 webinars. I'm going to ask for 8 referrals. Now, all those things are 100% within your control. So to say, for example, I'm going to make 10 calls to speak to 10 customers, what you're not measuring is whether you speak to them or not. You can't control whether that customer's available to speak, whether they'll give you the time, whether whatever. What you can control is dialing the blinking number.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So this week I will find the time somewhere to make 10 phone calls. This week I will find the time to post 3 LinkedIn videos. I will invite people to 1 webinar. Now, whether anyone looks at that LinkedIn post or whether anyone attends your webinar, that's kind of by the by. There's another set of activities behind that, but that's your behaviour. I will ask for 8 referrals. Again, you have no control over whether someone gives you a referral. You have no control over whether the referral they give you is any good. You've no control over whether the referral they give you, if it's good, if it will lead to any business. All of those are out of your control. The one thing that we control is asking for it.
Yeah.
So it's a nice wrap into your pick the phone up and ask someone. So that action, we build this head trash in our head that, oh, well, what if dot 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 they don't give it to me, or what if dot 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 the call goes on, or what if dot 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 they're not there. Get rid of that head trash. Focus on the things that we can actually control and hold ourselves accountable.
Yeah, I love it, and I think that's it. And I love ending on that point of you can control your own behaviour, and I suppose the takeaway from here is go do something, right? Go do some prospecting.
Go do something. Yeah. And that's a great tour track. If I had a T-shirt done up to it, say go do stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So Will, thanks for coming on. That's been awesome. Provided a lot of value, I'm sure, for our listeners and our viewers. If people want to hear more from you, where's the best place to find you?
Best place to connect is on LinkedIn. So having said the first thing that we should do in business is add value to our customers, I post lots of stuff on LinkedIn. Every Thursday I post a sales tip. Every Wednesday I'll post access downloadable material you can pull from me and Sandler. Other interim stuff I'll post there. I host regular complimentary workshops. My training centre is actually based down in Southampton. So I'll regularly post videos that advertise when those are going to be. They're limited numbers only, and you have to register for them on Eventbrite. But I'll give details of what they are. If you want to see more of me and understand more about how I work with clients, those are a great first thing to come to. If anyone, I hold them every month. If that's of interest to anyone, again, watch me talk about them on LinkedIn.
Fantastic. I'll make sure we put some links in below for you so that people can find you easily. So excellent. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome, Dan. It's been great to come along this morning.
No worries. Hope you've had value from this. If you have, please do share it with other people in your network. Of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the little bell below so you get notified whenever we release more videos just like this one. See you on the next one.